Steve, we'll start with Brighton. Top of the table clash. Is it too early to be looking at the league table?
Of course it's too early. I mean, we've only just started. You know, I think we've got still 40 odd to play, haven't we? However, I've just said to the radio there that if you can get to top of the league, why not get early and stay there? You know, so it'd be nice to go and play at the top of the table clash, and I'm looking forward to the game, of course.
You'll know Chris Hughton well from your time both in the North East. Have you been impressed with the job that he's done down there?
Well, he's always done a good job. He did a good job in the North East. He did a good job at Birmingham. He's did a really very good job at Brighton too. He's one of the good lads, and I'm delighted for people like Chris. He's been around a long time, works extremely hard, very, very thorough in everything he does. And of course, I've got to know him after being in the North East, and you know, I'm delighted that he's done so well again, and it doesn't surprise me because of what he's done in the past.
Deadline day, you kept all your big players bar Nikica Jelavic. How important was that, and do you think you've now got a squad that's capable of maintaining?
Well, it was always difficult over the summer, was who's going to go next, and I said, and I made it public, that you know, people had buyouts and contracts and all the rest of it, so when all that was swirling around, it was difficult. However, we've lost something like 14, 15 players, and we've brought 6 or 7 in. I'm really, really pleased of the squad and how it's shaped up as we speak at the moment. There was times when I thought we might lose 2, 3, 4 more. Thankfully that hasn't happened just yet, so it's given us the nucleus to work around the squad and get a decent squad together, and I'm very, very pleased with the squad we've got. When I look at the division, we're as strong as anybody else, if not better. That doesn't give you a guarantee in this league. We have to apply ourselves like every other team does. We realise how difficult it is over the last 5, 6 games. I think it was vitally important that we got off to a decent start, which we have done. Now, can we carry that forward? And I think with the young players we've brought in and keeping the big players that we had, then gives us an exceptional chance to where we want to get to, which is obviously back in the Premier League.
Jake Livermore, clearly this is a very complex matter.
Yep.
You're privy to information that's not out there in the public domain, so
I think it'll all be publicised shortly, I would have thought. But you're right. It is a difficult matter, and I think I have to respect the FA Commission and what they've found. There's obviously big mitigating circumstances of the reasons why for Jake. And as I spoke to Jake yesterday, some people will never forgive him, which I can understand and what Jake understands. As far as I'm concerned and the club's concerned, he's made a mistake. He's apologised for that mistake. And now he wants to get back to a part of his life which he wants to do, which is obviously play professional football. And we'll do everything we can to help him get over what he's been through. There's no mistake in that he's made a mistake. He's held his hands up and made that mistake. But obviously the mitigating circumstances surrounding the case, the FA Commission have decided that being out for the last 5 months has been punishment enough. So I think we have to respect that and move forward with him.
Mentally, is he still in a fragile state?
Well, he only came in yesterday and he was a popular player, really, really popular amongst the squad. And that remained yesterday. He did some running yesterday with the fitness people, and we'll assess how he is. But he certainly came in yesterday and was delighted to be back. As you can imagine, he's been through a lot over the last 5, 6 months, and I'm sure the players and everybody at the club have welcomed him back. And we hope that he can get over all the problems that he's been suffering. And you know, because you're a professional footballer, it doesn't mean to say that you don't have problems. And I can understand and genuinely believe that people will never forgive of what he's done, and I think Jake accepts that too. But for me and the club and the vast majority of supporters, I'm sure, will welcome Jake back into the squad, because we're a stronger squad when we've got Jake in it. So let's all move forward. Let's let him get on with his life, which is obviously been in a difficult place, and get him back playing, which is vitally important for him.
And physically, obviously he's missed a lot of football. Where's he at? And when
Well,
do you have to have him back?
physically, you can see he's been in the gym. I think he's been on the punch bag a bit, and he's been lifting a bit of weights. So but he's in decent nick. He's one of them natural athletes, Jake. And yesterday he was in very decent shape. So I'll know more in the next 2-3 days of where he's up to and where he's at. And next week we'll be able to assess where he's at. And but I would envisage that it would be at least 2-3 weeks before we see him, and we need to get him back playing in under 21 game, maybe a week on Monday is a target already in my mind. Let's see how he is.
How big a player can he be for you this season?
He's a good player. We paid £6 million for him, and at the time was on the verge of the England setup. So that's what he's got the challenge for Jake is to get himself back there, and he's going to have a difficult road ahead. He understands that, but he's certainly got the ability. When we brought him here, he was a fantastic addition to us, and he can be a huge player for us, and I'm sure he will do.
You talked before about him needing help. Will the club give him help over the next few months?
We'll give him every help that he can, and it's important that he keeps seeking that help. And in this macho industry of alpha males, then people don't really want to ask for help too often, and it takes maybe a bigger man to ask for help. And I think Jake has realised that he needed help, and certainly he has had help, and it goes way above what I'm ever used to. So he's seek professional help, and he's got it, and that will continue, I'm sure.
Steve, I was with Richie Humphries last night, chairman of the PFA, and he made a point that the PFA are one of those bodies that offer people like Jake support in these matters. So what's out there for individuals like Jake, and for Jake in particular, as you try and give him that support?
Well, I think the first thing that people have to realise is that Jake himself needed to seek help. And with doctors, a confidentiality and all the rest of it that goes with it, sometimes managers like myself are in the dark a little bit, and there's no doubt Jake has had a huge tragedy in his life, and the mitigating circumstances surrounding that has led him down that path. So, to be fair to Jake, over the last 6 months and maybe the last 9 months, he's been getting advice and getting help. And you're right, the PFA offer all sorts of circumstances and all sorts of help when their members are in trouble. And I think that's a vital part of the PFA. And not just when they're in it. You see a lot of players get into states of depression after the finish. I've seen lots drift out of the game, and where all of a sudden they institutionalise playing football by everyday training. I decide when they're in, when they're not, when they come in, when they don't. And I was having a conversation a couple of years ago with Niall Quinn that I think it's vitally important that the PFA could do a little bit more for players when they start finishing. They do a lot in rugby, and I think it's a vital path that they do that. The PFA, certainly when their members are in trouble, like Jake has been, are second to none in what they do, in the help that they give them. And but I still think, like everything else, that we can do a little bit more.
When you saw Jake for the first time yesterday, how did you find him?
Like I always found him. He's a very, very popular man within the dressing room. I wouldn't have paid $6.5 million or whatever I paid for him 12-18 months ago if I thought that he wasn't what he is. There's no doubt that he's been troubled over what's happened. And in my 15 years of management, last year I said to my staff on numerous occasions, there's something quite not right with Jake. And I didn't quite identify what it was, which I feel I let him down a little bit with it. I should have realised that he was in trouble, in a dark place. But you carry on because you think, well, he's lost a little bit of form and he hasn't done this and he hasn't done that. There was obviously times where he was in a dark place, Jake, and all of us, myself and my management team and medical staff maybe, could have done more to help him. I'm talking in hindsight. Certainly we'll do everything what we possibly can now to make sure that he gets all the help that people need. And as I've said to all sorts of people since, just because he's a professional footballer doesn't mean to say that he doesn't have troubles like everybody else does. And yes, he's paid a lot of money, and yes, he's got a great way of life, but sometimes that becomes troubled, like everybody else can suffer.
So would you say that you learned a lesson and your staff learned a lesson?
Well, you never stop. You never stop in management, and the biggest part of management really is treating an individual. We're all different, and as I said, in this macho male environment, which professional football is, people don't like to see a sign of weakness. They don't like to say individually ask for help, and that takes a man at times as well to ask for help when you're in trouble. And I'm sure Jake has realised that, and I'm sure the rest of the squad, after what Jake has suffered, has seen the benefits of asking for a bit of help when you need it.
And talking about that squad, how were they when he turned up yesterday? What was their reaction?
Well, he did a beep test, which we all do on a yo-yo test, if people don't know what that is, but it's a running test really, and I would say 80% of the squad stayed behind to see how he did in that test. So he was a very, very popular, and is a very, very popular member of the squad, and I think they're all delighted that he's back because he can help us. We're a stronger squad with Jake Livermore in it next week or 2 weeks' time than we were, and I think they realise that he's had serious problems in his life, and hopefully he's over them. Hopefully we move on and he gets back to being the Jake Livermore which we knew when we signed him 18 months ago.
Thank you very much. Steve, I just wanted to expand on some of the things you were saying, just talking more generally about management and the lessons that you're learning throughout the processes like this, what you've been through. I suppose that just goes to show it's not all about the result on Saturday and performances dipping. You try and make sense of why someone doesn't perform, but sometimes other factors that you have to be aware of.
Well, I must have said it 4 or 5 times to my staff that there's something not quite right with Jake, and we didn't identify it. So in that respect, as I've just said, then we could have done more, I could have done more. However, that's something what you learn from. You're right, a loss of form, why is it, what are they doing, all the rest of it, that sometimes happens, but I think there was a bit more to it obviously in Jake's case.
What can you say to your players now, just a collective group? If you have got a problem, come to me. I've got an open
Well, I
door.
say that all the time. I say that my door is always open, and but of course, it's a male macho industry where they all think they're Arnold Schwarzenegger or Tarzan. They think they can fight the world. So and sometimes not the case. So we've all learned a lesson.
On to the footballing matters, you kind of got through September, as you say, wondering whether more players would go than they did. You kind of closed that door, and you look at the results that you got. Pretty good month all in all, wasn't it?
All in all, we needed a good start. And we've had a decent one. So we've got a nucleus now of a squad. When I look at it, we're as strong as anybody else. In fact, we're better than most. So we've got to grasp that mantle and accept that challenge. We're one of the favourites to go up, and rightly so, with the squad we've got. We've got to make sure we deal with these expectations, and I expect us to be there or thereabouts. With the squad we've got and the players we've got, then there's no reason why we shouldn't.
Have you got the personnel that you wanted, or are you still needing to maybe look into the...
Well, I'm always... my job is to always knock the door and ask to improve. But I'm very, very pleased. There won't be anybody else. Now with Jake, the situation with Jake, in the midfield area, defensively, and strikers, we're okay. So.
And the test is 2 games, in quick succession. As soon as you have a break and they're back at it again.
Well, we've got 4 and 8 days again, which is something like that, 8-9 days, which is pretty normal.
Is it a case of using the squad though, and moving?
No, we'll see how they are after months. We've just had a vast majority of them have had a couple of weeks off. So, well, not a couple of weeks off, but they've had no games. So we'll see how they are.
What about the new lads that you brought in? Is everyone integrating well? Are you happy?
Well, we've got a bit of a problem with Lowney because he unfortunately nicked a hamstring with Scotland, and unfortunately when you signing Diamante's had to have a procedure on his groin yesterday. We thought that was just going to be a normal groin injury which he picked up in his last game. He had a little operation yesterday which will keep him out for the next 6 to 8 weeks too.
How long is Sean going to be out of action, do you think, with that hamstring?
Well, we thought Diamante was going to be 2-3 weeks. We think Sean will, he's got probably 2-3 weeks.
2-3 weeks. Mo okay? Mo Diarmi, he's not picked up any?
Mo's fine.